So the ego is a belief. It's not an entity. It's not an actual thing or some kind of function of the mind. It's a belief that you are that character in the story, that you are simply this body and mind, that you are a separate individual. It's a belief in the same way believing in the tooth fairy is a belief. People talk about killing your ego or getting rid of the ego. Wasn't there a book called Ego is the Enemy or something like that? It's like saying the tooth fairy is the enemy and we have to get rid of her. But to get rid of the tooth fairy, what do? You just stop believing in it in the first place. So the default position is you as this consciousness. The belief, the appearance of thoughts with that character in the story, and the belief that you are that person and simply this body and mind, that's layered over the primary reality of this just open spaciousness, oneness, or not even that. It's non-dual by nature at its core. Just in the same way as, let's say you believed you were the character in a virtual reality world. You have a virtual reality headset on and you can see this virtual body, and maybe even these thoughts are coming in from the speakers, like there's the character's voice and this projection of a world out there, and you start to believe that you're that character and that the thoughts coming over the speakers are actually your thoughts, and the world out there is a separate objective world out there that's real. But that is a second order phenomena. The primary reality is the headset. The primary reality is the screen. The belief that you are that character is layered on over the top. And so it's exactly the same with this. The primary reality is that there is just consciousness appearing. The second order reality is that there is this appearance within that, or as that, of the body and the mind and thoughts and feelings in the external world. But really, it's just consciousness that can appear as anything, appearing as this experience, appearing as the experience of 8 billion people and trillions of animals and however many aliens there are out there all at once. Or any universes. It can appear as anything. You already know that because you dream. And everybody's had some really abstract dreams. And we, from the materialist model, think that that's some kind of figment of the imagination. Well, it is, but so is this. The imagination of God, the imagination of the one consciousness. But in the material model, we believe that we're living in a separate objective world made of this stuff called matter that's out there, outside consciousness, which we have absolutely no proof for. And that somehow within that world, some slime forms and gradually evolves into a meat sack of organs, and at some point in this brain, this thing called consciousness switches on, and then there's this subjective experience. And then that subjective experience can even imagine other worlds. But it's all fantasy. It's all a belief. When you stare reality right in its face, it's just this appearing. It's our dream. It's the dream of the one mind. So you don't need to try and get rid of the ego. You don't need to do anything about it because it never existed to begin with. It was just a belief. Now, it seems to really catch your attention a lot, right? Especially when there's a challenging situation or just anything that triggers these feelings. The feelings arise in the body. You feel these feelings in the body. Well, most people don't feel them because there's so much in their head that they don't even realize what's going on in their body. But if you feel inside the body, you feel that there's these sensations that suddenly arise when you're thinking of anything you're attached to or averse to, or you experience any kind of challenge that triggers those old emotional wounds or traumas, and that feeling comes to the surface. And that's what's driving the thinking. That's why it seems almost fruitless if you've tried to practice meditation for a long time, just moving your attention back to the present, and yet you still find your mind super busy and you wonder why. Because you've got to release those emotions that are supporting the thoughts, because that's what's driving them. You already know this because when you feel really relaxed in the body, your mind is also quiet. But most of us almost never feel fully relaxed in the body because we've always got this background feeling going on that we're trying to suppress down. But when you zoom out, when you know yourself as this wide open spaciousness in which everything's appearing, then those feelings can start to come to the surface. Then you're able to rest as this beingness whilst the character and the story does its thing, and it feels frustrated about things, and it feels angry about things, and it feels anxious, and that's all welcome. But you see it from a different perspective. You see it from the meta perspective, and you don't identify with that character. And so the story is allowed to resolve itself, and instead of going round in a cycle, that's what the identification creates. That's what that ego belief creates. It creates the cycle of those thoughts. So the feeling stays repressed and never gets a chance to release, and the cycle of the thinking never gets a chance to resolve itself. But when you rest as the open spaciousness of aware presence, then that thinking is allowed to be there and the feeling is allowed to rise up, but it's the last time you have to experience that layer. It's another layer that comes up and drops out of the body, and you might have a big sigh or a big cry as you let go of that attachment or you let go of that aversion, and then you're free from it. And you get down and down and down and down through the layers until you get to the fear of death right at the bottom. And then once one let goes of that, then one is truly free, right? So you see those thoughts playing like a podcast. Imagine there was a podcast and it was like the internal monologue of a person, and you started believing that those were actually your thoughts and that was actually your life. You don't have to get rid of the podcast. You just have to stop believing that you are the character in that. So you never had to kill anything because it didn't exist in the first place. That's what the revelation is. And isn't it wonderful? Don't think there's anything more to come at the moment, so see you in the next video. Peace.